It's time for the Kurtiss Riggs Show. The head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm. The Kurtiss Riggs Show on FM 98.1, AM 1230, KWSN, and KWSN.com. The Kurtiss Riggs Show being brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute. Now, here's your host of the Kurtiss Riggs Show, the voice of the Sioux Falls Storm, Rich Rosty.
And good afternoon and hi, everybody. I'm Rich Rosty, and welcome to the Kurtiss Riggs Show. Like always, we're going to be talking to the Storm head coach, Kurtiss Riggs, about the games around the IFL, and things are getting interesting around the league. Also, we're going to be talking to him about where his team started, where it's been, how it's going right now, where the team is now, and then we're also going to be talking about what does the team need to do to get to be where they want to be. We're going to be talking to the head coach about that in the Kurtiss Riggs Show today. Then also we'll be having on the show quarterback Lorenzo Brown Jr. and talking to him about what's it going to take for the final push for the Sioux Falls Storm as they have three games remaining in the regular season, and then going to be playoffs. Storm have qualified for the playoffs. But we want to find out from Lorenzo Brown what the team needs to do to get themselves ready for this final push and also getting ready for the postseason. All of that coming up on the Kurtiss Riggs Show. Also, we'll be talking to the coach about the game coming up on Saturday. It's at 7 o'clock on Saturday at the Denny Stanford Premier Center against the San Diego Strike Force. And that game and all of the rest of the Storm games will be on our sister station, KELO AM 1320 and FM 107.9. Now, the Kurtiss Riggs Show is proudly presented each week by the official Storm sports medicine provider, Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital, the Storm official healthcare team, and the only 5-star rated hospital in Sioux Falls, and also by Orthopedic Institute, the one to trust. Coming up, he is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Kurtiss Riggs, and you're listening to his show right here on FM 98.1, AM 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN. Rich.
First Premier Bank Free Plus Checking gives you the freedom to experience life, to enjoy the things you love, and to breeze through checkout lines with free mobile wallet features. Bank anywhere you want with online account opening and instant issue debit cards. Feel the freedom of no fees, no minimum balances, and no unpleasant surprises. First Premier Bank Free Plus Checking. Apply online or at any branch location. First Premier Bank, member FDIC.
When should you visit Sioux Falls Urgent Care? When that common cold is not so common. When that chicken definitely needed 2 more minutes. Or when you shouldn't have done it yourself. Sioux Falls Urgent Care specializes in medical fixes for life's glitches. We're faster than the ER at a fraction of the cost. So, when you're down from a sofa stage dive, see us. Walk-ins are welcome and most insurance is accepted. Visit Sioux Falls Urgent Care today.
You're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosty.
And each week, our opening interview with the Storm head coach, Kurtiss Riggs, is brought to you by the good folks over at Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. They've been Storm sponsors since day one, and come see what fresh really is. Baked fresh, sliced fresh, and delivered fresh. That's Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Number one in the delivery sales for the entire Good Sense franchise system for the past 20 years. That's Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Man, that's good. He is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Kurtiss Riggs. Coach, you had a bye week. I imagine you just sat around, maybe played some golf, enjoyed some time just traveling around, or was it?
Yeah, it was something like that, Rich. Pretty close.
Well, I tell you what, Coach, the league went on without us during this past week, and there were some games. We'll go through them, talk about a little bit, talk about the standings and what's coming up on the playoff situation. But one of the games, Bismarck was at Iowa. No surprise, Iowa victorious in that ball game, 66-35. Storm play both of those teams coming up in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was somewhat of a deceptive game, though, because I think it was about 7 minutes into the third quarter, it was still a 1-point game. And then Iowa turned it on, and Bismarck kind of fell apart. They just couldn't keep up with Iowa at that point. But they hung around for quite a while.
Did that show anything about Iowa that you maybe didn't know before?
No, not really. I mean, I think it's, one, playing on the road is always really tough. So Bismarck had their work cut out for them. Two, Iowa's a more athletic team than Bismarck. And three, once kind of Iowa woke up, you saw the better team kind of pulled away.
A game on Saturday was Arizona defeated Tucson 62-47. Not a real surprise there, but I thought maybe it was a surprise in one way in the fact that it was closer than I thought it would be.
Well, I mean, Tucson has good players, Rich. You look on defense, I mean, they have the linebacker that played for Iowa last year that I thought was the defensive MVP. They have a first-team defensive lineman that came from Iowa last year. They have some very athletic defensive backs. They just couldn't match up with Arizona, though. And Drew Powell running the ball. I mean, yes, he can throw it, but, man, is he a force running the ball, too. And now they got their nose guard back. He didn't make it with Cleveland. I mean, they have a formidable team there.
One thing about Tucson, their biggest problem was they had to play Arizona 4 times in the course of the season. Their record probably not much different if they would have played some of the teams to the east of them.
Yeah, and the tough part for them is they have a bye week, and then they play Arizona again, and then they end with Quad Cities at Tucson, which that game is going to be huge for who gets in the playoffs and seedings, because Quad Cities, Nebraska, and Tucson are all right there together.
Yeah, Green Bay 6-5, Tucson 6-6, Nebraska 5-7, Quad City 5-7. But the game of the week, no doubt, was at Nebraska. Quad Cities traveled down to Grand Island in overtime. Quad City 43, Nebraska 37, and the second week in a row, Nebraska lost on the last play of the game.
Yeah, and it might have been one of the worst games that I've seen the second half. Nebraska was up by 17 at one point. Quad Cities comes back, takes the lead, starts to pull away, and then really could just end the game. And they had maybe the worst clock management I've seen. And then they went to try to just win the game instead of securing it by running the clock out. They tried to go for a touchdown, and it totally backfired on them. Then they could have kicked a field goal to go up 6 instead of 3, and they opted to go for a touchdown. Didn't get that, and Nebraska's able to go down, tie it, put it in overtime. And you thought, as poor as Nebraska's played, they might win this game.
Uh-huh.
And then in overtime, they couldn't get a touchdown, and Quad Cities won.
And the last play was an amazing play. Hilliard was scrambling, running around, throwing it. Finally throws the back of the end zone, going over the boards. Reception is made. They call it right there. He caught it, and the game over. It was probably about a 12, 14-second play by the time Hilliard finally released the football.
Yeah, Pedroza made a spectacular catch, too. And, he got challenged. And the thing that made it tough was as Pedroza comes up, a fan grabs the ball right out of his hand.
Yeah.
And but the official did a really good job of being there right away, seeing he caught it. He came down with it. He goes to lift the ball up, and the official sees the fan grab it out of his hand. So it was really a good call by the official.
Buys last week, Sioux Falls, Cedar Rapids, Green Bay, and San Diego all had buys. This week, Green Bay's at Bismarck, Arizona's at Cedar Rapids, and, of course, San Diego's here at Sioux Falls, and buys for Nebraska, Quad Cities, Tucson, and Iowa. The way the standings are right now, Arizona still undefeated, 11-0, Iowa 11-1, Storm 9-2. Those 3 teams have clinched a playoff spot. But the next 4 teams are going to be battling for, 5 teams going to be battling for 4 spots. Green Bay 6-5, Tucson 6-6, Nebraska 5-7, Quad Cities 5-7. I just saw that Nebraska signed Mike Tatum, that he was released from Bismarck, got signed by the Danger.
Yeah, it sure is weird. The trade deadline ends, but then a team releases probably their leading receiver, and he gets picked up by another team right away. It's just kind of make you wonder, how those things work out like that. But, I'm sure the teams or the player and teams were not talking at all. I mean, that would never happen.
Absolutely not.
But,
Absolutely not.
But, he'll help them. I mean, the thing is they will go as Armstrong goes. If Armstrong can play solid, safe football, then they'll always be in the game because they're athletic enough defensively and they're athletic enough in all the other positions. But if they turn the ball over and struggle offensively, that's when they'll struggle.
As far as the remaining schedules for the teams in question, I think that Green Bay has the best schedule. They play Cedar Rapids twice, Tucson, Arizona, and they'll host Quad Cities, as you talked about. Nebraska will be at San Diego and at Iowa to finish up the season. Quad Cities will host Bismarck and then be at Tucson, like we talked about. And then Iowa hosting Sioux Falls, and they will host Nebraska that almost beat them earlier in the season. It's going to be an interesting last 3 weeks of the season, isn't it, Coach?
It will, Rich. The thing that's exciting is, there's some games in there that, each team should win, but then there's some big ones in there for everybody. Us in Iowa, Nebraska and Iowa, Quad Cities and Tucson. I would say Green Bay has a favorable schedule for them to get into the playoffs. I would say Tucson's got a tough one. That Quad Cities Tucson game is going to be huge for those two teams.
Well, Coach, we'll talk about the Storm when we come back. And thanks, Coach. We'll be talking with you in just a moment.
All right.
You're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show right here on FM 98.1, AM 1230, Sports Radio KWSN. We'll be back right after this.
No one plans things.
Your body is a complex arrangement of bone and tissue that requires only the best to maintain it. At Orthopedic Institute, that's our specialty. Our services have been specifically tailored to provide the best orthopedic care in the region. Orthopedics is what we do. That's why Orthopedic Institute is the one to trust to keep your body in motion.
You're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosty.
And this segment of the Kurtiss Riggs Show is brought to you by Eastway Bowl, a perfect spot for family fun. Eastway Sports Lounge, the official Storm road game viewing party host for the Storm games, and the next viewing party will be on Saturday, June 8th. As the Storm travels to Des Moines to take on the Iowa Barnstormers. He is the coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Kurtiss Riggs. Coach, for this segment, we're going to take a little bit different change. We don't have a game to recap. We're going to talk about the 3 remaining games that the Sioux Falls Storm has. This week, the Storm has San Diego. Next week, a big rematch at Iowa, and then finish up the regular season at home versus Bismarck. And a must-win for all of those games in order for the Storm to have a first-round bye and be seated second in the IFL. So I have 3 questions that we're going to kind of go through as we talk about this final push. Where has the team been this season? Where is the team now? And where does the team need to go? So first of all, where has the team been? And what have you learned about the team this season?
Well, the team's been all over the place, Rich. I mean, it's been highs, lows, in between, and gone back and forth multiple times. And some of that was personnel. Some of it is injuries.
Yeah.
And some of it's, playing against a good team and not being ready, too. So I think throughout the season, we've experienced about every gamut that you could face.
Wedged in all of those different factors, what would be a surprise that you were glad to see in your ball club?
I think a surprise is, some of the new additions that we picked up. Getting a Chris Taylor, a Pete Borum, Kent Shelby really starting to step up now. Kalen Campbell coming in when Darian Miller was hurt and really picking up on things. I think some of these guys, getting Lorenzo White back, and I think the roster changes when they benefit for you are always such a pleasant addition.
When you talk about pleasant things, how about the things that maybe disappointed you in the first part of the season to now?
Well, I think the thing that disappoints me most is you recruit, you try so hard to get a guy, and the guy works so hard on selling you that, hey, coach, I'm coming there because I want to move up to the NFL. But then when they come here, it's not that it doesn't work out, but it's when the guy is disappointing in the aspect, all they do is they just want to step on the field and play football. They don't do all the little things that it really takes to be an NFL player. They're not in working out outside of practice time. They're not getting extra film work in. It's just recreational for them. And those are the ones that are really disappointing for us. It's not that they didn't come in and fit into our system. It's that they didn't want to do the extra stuff to get to the level they want to be at.
Now, compared to the start of the season, where would you grade your team now?
I would say we're better. I think we're better from the beginning of the season. I think, we had just a massive slew of rookies at the beginning of the season, and not even, second or third year guys. I mean, we're talking first year guys, and to bring them in and have a core of them still with us and getting better, I think is a good thing. I would say, we were probably at a low C early in the season, and now we're at about a B. Probably, I would say we're good, but we can also be to where we swing both ways here, Rich. We could go to a C, or sometimes we can go up to an A. So a B is probably a safe grade.
When you get to this part of the season, and part of these questions are not only just as far as coaching the Storm, but things that you would tell coaches as you coach coaches about how to coach their team. When you get to this time of the year, are things that you coachable? Is that a coachable correction, or is it a matter of the personnel doing the jobs that they are able to do but maybe are not doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think if it's at this point in the season, Rich, and the same guys are making the same mistakes, then as a coach, you have to look at how to do things differently. And you just have to change your system to fit their strengths or find someone else to play. But, when people are making the same mistakes over and over, whatever you're doing to try to correct the mistake is not working. So how do you kind of fit the scheme to fit their strengths a little bit better?
And that's a fine line sometimes, isn't it, Coach? Because you think that the ability is there, but maybe it's masked. And then other times when you find somebody, all of a sudden you find that you unmask and find the gem inside. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's when we lost Chris Dixon, we knew offensively we couldn't come in and have Martavius Young and Lorenzo Brown try to beat Chris Dixon, or whoever came in after Terrence Bryant. And so you have to find what is the strength of your team and build off of that. And at that time, we had a really good running back, probably the best to ever play for us, Torrey Harrison.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought, how can we get Torrey the ball different ways, in space, in traffic, pass, run, whatever, and utilize him. And that's kind of what changed our identity. And then you start to get those quarterbacks comfortable. And that's where Lorenzo really took off from that point on.
As far as the Storm right now, we have 3 games remaining in the regular season, 2 home games and a big road game down to Iowa. And where do you feel the team needs to go to where they are right now to be a contender for a championship?
Well, our biggest thing is consistency, Rich. We lack being consistent. At times we look really good, and at times we look really bad. And that's not just one facet. It's offense, it's defense, it's special teams. I mean, every area. And, we've racked our brains as coaches is what can we do differently, like what we were just talking about, to create, a safer product, meaning, We're not going to turn the ball over. We're not going to put ourselves in bad situations. We're not going to give up home runs. We're going to make teams have to beat us. We're not going to beat ourselves. And it's been a struggle. It's been tough. And when we play well, we're really good. But when we have those weaknesses, probably anyone in the league could beat us.
When you talk about the team for the future, the games coming up, the seasons ahead, even, however you take a look at that, what has a greater effect on changing the team? Changing the personnel or changing the personality of the team?
Yeah, it's really hard to change personality of a team. That's really hard. In fact, the only way to change personality of a team is to change personnel.
Okay.
And you take one person off a roster, that can change your dynamics quickly for the good or bad. You look last year, we made some roster moves, and at the end of the season, our offense was playing as the best we had played. In fact, we were playing at a championship level, and a lot of that was because we made just one or two subtle changes with personnel. And so right now, I feel like we have great personality, just sometimes we don't have great football intelligence. And it's tough to get those two to mix together, because when your personality is to be an entertainer, sometimes you lack maybe that football knowledge of down and distance. What am I trying to do here? Because you're thinking more about what's my touchdown celebration going to be.
Well, that leads into the next question that I have for you. In the fact is, as far as the coach is concerned, when you're players and you're this time of the year, which is better for you as a team as far as success is concerned? Players that are playmakers or players that understand play perception? In other words, why is the play designed the way it is, and what do I have to do to make it work, and what do I have to do within this game as the time goes or the plays are downs or whatever it is? The perception of the game itself. Which is better, the playmaker or the players that really understand what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, the schemes, without a doubt, Rich. I mean, the players that understand what you're trying to do schematically, because now you can coach. Now it truly is like a chess match. Now, don't get me wrong. It's great to have a Caleb Hawley and know that I can just throw it up there and he's going to out-jump everyone to get it. But in a scheme, I can also make sure that Caleb Hawley gets wide open.
Yeah.
And so, you want that consistency that you'll get with a scheme. Playmakers, they can't do it every single play. And you find yourself just watching those guys rather than everyone playing within the pieces of the puzzle.
That also leads me to another question. What's more important for the player to learn, how to run the route, or how to run the route that isn't going to get him the catch, but is going to make the play successful?
Yeah, that's really hard for a lot of guys in this league, Rich, is knowing that they're doing things within a concept and not being the playmaker is really hard, because they all think making the plays is what's going to attract all the attention to myself. The scouts, everyone's going to see that. And so maybe not blocking on the downfield isn't something people really notice. I'd rather be running with the ball.
Yeah.
So that's very tough. But I think, this year we have a group of guys that are starting to really grasp that and pick up that it's a team game and not just, hey, let's throw it to one guy and watch him do everything.
When you send film to a scout, does the scout look more at what the player does on his play, or when he has the play scheduled that it's not going to him, does the scout watch that with just as much intensity?
Yeah, maybe more, Rich, because they figure most of the guys are playmakers. So they'll watch and see him make a play, great. But they want to see what's their effort like when they don't have the ball in their hands. Are they a good blocker? Are they a good tackler? Are they good at, hey, can I keep my contain and force this ball carrier inside to my help? Or am I going to just shoot inside and try to make the tackle and put the defense in a bad situation? They're going to look at all those things. And then also, how do they help on special teams?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I'm from the generation where Bill Brown was the fullback for the Minnesota Vikings. but he was also one of the first guys down the field on special teams. He didn't have to. He was a star. But that's how he played the game, and that's what people remember is what he did on the special teams. And I talked to Andre Fields one time. There's a guy in the Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame, and his basic claim to fame was his actions and his enthusiasm, his passion for playing all out on special teams, and that's such a huge, huge factor.
Well, and one of the best that we ever had at linebacker, Brian McIntyre.
Oh, yeah.
That's how he made the team, was special teams. And then we started to figure out that he's a really smart linebacker that is always near the football.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the kid that we just signed from Western Illinois, Pete Swinson, Brian McIntyre was his high school coach. So, that was the first guy we called, and how would he fit? What kind of effort does he give? And that's a pretty good recommendation there.
I can about imagine how that conversation went with Brian McIntyre. That was good stuff, Coach. I really appreciate that. And we'll talk to you after a while about the Strike Force coming into town on Saturday.
All right, thanks.
He is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Kurtiss Riggs. Coming up, we'll be giving you some information about some updates around the Sioux Falls Storm, and you're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show right here on FM 98.1 AM 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN.
The Winklers thought they were prepared for the summer heat, but their perspiration would prove otherwise. The family had grown accustomed to the AC breaking down and improvising. But the not-so-silent hum of their makeshift AC was wearing thin. That's when it became clear it was time to call the service guys. Waterbury, we are service.
You're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosty.
And this segment brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. And after we go to break, we'll have Storm tickets for giveaway. Brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. And we'll take the third call, 336-1230, for the next home game. That's on Saturday against the San Diego Strike Force. Some up-to-date updates for you. All remaining Storm games will be on Kello AM 1320 and FM 107.9. Also, the Kurtiss Riggs Show is archived at SiouxFallsStorm.com. Remember, both S's, Falls and Storm. And just click on Stormcast, and you can go and listen to any of the previous Kurtiss Riggs Show. Also, Canaries baseball at 6:55 with Carter Waddell. And coming up next on the Kurtiss Riggs Show is Storm quarterback Lorenzo Brown. And we'll take your third call, 336 Lewis Pharmacies free ticket giveaway. We'll be back right after this.
When people think of Uncle Ed,
if you like to bowl, roll on into Eastway Bowl. Hey, wait a minute. Eastway Bowl is more than just bowling. It's a full of fun entertainment center. There's many things to do. Games, and more games, plus food. Great food. Come into our full-service sports bar and grill where you'll find terrific drinks with our popular late-night specials. Watch all your favorite sporting events at Eastway. Visit our website to make your bowling reservations and find out more about the full fun experience. Eastway Bowl and Entertainment Center, where there's something for everyone.
You're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosty.
And this segment brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. And we'll take the third call, 336-1230. 4 free tickets for the game coming up on Saturday as the Storm hosts the San Diego Strike Force. Joining us now, he is the quarterback for the Sioux Falls Storm, Lorenzo Brown Jr. Zoe, thanks for being on the Kurtiss Riggs Show.
No problem, Rich. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's the final push of the season. There's 3 games left of the regular season. And I want to ask you this question. How much different is it physically on your body and your mind playing a 14-game regular season versus a collegiate 11-game season?
Well, it's a little rougher in the indoor game, I would say, versus the college schedule. in college you just have to worry about class, workout, stuff like that. And now I got, real world stuff to deal with besides football too. I mean, kids, full-time job, and, practice workouts. And I mean, my days have been loaded since February, but I think I do well managing my time, my body. This year I've been fortunate, knock on wood, to not have as many nicks and bruises I had as last year. Last year was more of a grind health-wise. But if you maintain your time, if you're on top of things, you can get through it. And that's what I'm going through.
I don't think a lot of people realize just how long a season is, and I can't imagine in the NFL that they're playing 20 games, but it takes a toll, and you have to manage your time and your body like you're talking about. Are there any special things that you do at this time of the year that help you get through the physical and the mental part of the season?
Yeah, I mean, you utilize the time you have off to just relax, stay off your feet, just unwind, and then you got to take care of your body. We got some good benefits out here. We got the cryo rev we go to. I get going there, a little cold chamber with the Normatec sleeves for my legs and my arm, and we got the best trainers in the league at OI. And if you go and get treatment and just take care of yourself, you have to, because it is a grind. It is a long season, and those little things can turn into big things if you don't take care of it.
Now, at this stage of the season, which helps more, film work or field practice?
You always got to study your opponent, but I mean, right now it's about knowing your opponent, because on the field, you've been doing that since February, and you've been doing it all your life, really. But as a team since February, so it's about knowing your opponent and executing the game plan that's given for that week. If you feel confident going into the game week, all you got to do is just perform, and with your God-given ability, and just take care of itself if you're on top of the game mentally.
Now, you're playing San Diego this weekend, and they're 1-10 on the year. And how do you not look past them and start thinking about the big game down in Des Moines against the Iowa Barnstormers?
To be honest, I think our team isn't built to look past anybody, honestly. If you look at our games, all of them, most of them have been close. We've lost 2 and definitely could have lost a couple more. To be honest. But it battle tests us. We're tested. We know what it takes to be in those close games, and it's going to help us out. But to answer your question, you can't look. I think our team, we can't look past anybody, because we're not that dominant team that we've had in the past that we can just show up and show out. We really got to execute the game plans on offense, defense, and special teams. And definitely with this team coming in, new team we haven't played before. We've only seen film on them. I know that they got a good offense. They can put up points. Their defense, anything can happen. So we got to go into it, focus on this week, 1 week at a time, and take care of business. The rest will fall in place.
Another question as far as this time of the year. Does your patience or does your temperament get a little bit shorter with the players during practice if execution and effort isn't there?
That's one thing that, Coach Terrence has been trying to, get me to be more vocal on that. And the little things, if it's, breaking the huddle or running to the line, because it shows in the game when we don't do that, myself included. I know, Riggs can get on me by, getting my butt in the huddle and getting the playoff, because, I set the tone. If I'm walking, everybody's going to walk. So that's one thing that, if you have practice good habits, it'll carry over to the game. And I think that's been a testament with, especially last game with our receivers on the outside. We really dialed it back on last week of practice before we had the bye, and just more, talking out what our scheme is and our blocking assignments, and just communication-wise in practice, and that definitely showed in the game, and it carried over. So that's just a testament right there.
Talking with Lorenzo Brown, quarterback.
For the game.
We're talking with Lorenzo Brown, quarterback for the Sioux Falls Storm. And one of the things that sometimes in the course of practice, tension gets a little bit high, things get a little bit chippy, things get a little bit aggressive. Can that be a good thing?
Oh, yeah, it could. It brings out the competitive spirit in everybody. We're all grown men out there. We're all competing. And, it's like a brother relationship. More so with the DBs and receivers. We got one-on-ones, and, the DBs, then they can cover anybody that they put in front of them, and the receivers, then they can beat everybody that gets in front of them. So, it's good competition. It's only going to make us better, and that's what we need. So it's good.
Well, Lorenzo, great having you on the Kurtiss Riggs Show as always. Always appreciate your comments, your candor. And like I've said before, you're an awful lot of fun to watch.
Well, I appreciate it, Rich. So, anytime, even if it's 5 minutes before, I got you.
I know you do. Thank you, Lorenzo Brown, for being on the Kurtiss Riggs Show.
Talk to you soon, man. See you Saturday.
You bet. And when we go to break, we'll take your third caller, 336 free tickets. Lewis Pharmacies. We'll be back right after this.
No one plans to have.
Hey guys, Bellator lightweight champion Michael Chandler here. I'm here at one of my favorite places in the entire world, the wrestling room. But if there's one thing we know about wrestling rooms, they can get extremely dirty. We're talking skin infections, we're talking about funk, we're talking about smelly armpits, we're talking about all kinds of stuff. So, my friends at Pure and Clean Sports came up with an awesome solution. Spray it right on your skin, wipe it off. Smells great, keeps you clean from the time you leave the mats to the time you can get home and shower. Not only is it the greatest skin defense in the entire world, it's the safest. Check them out, pureandcleansports.com.
You're listening to the Kurtiss Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosty.
And each week, our game preview interview with the Storm head coach, Kurtiss Riggs, is brought to you by Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. And they've implemented a new delivery service with a third-party delivery company, so you get your subs baked fresh, sliced fresh, and delivered fresh. Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs, man, that's good. He is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Kurtiss Riggs. Couple things before we start talking about San Diego. You had mentioned that you had signed a new defensive lineman, Pete Swenson, out of Western Illinois, and also see in the transactions that Miles Bergner's season-ending injury. Tell us about that.
Well, Miles, he tried to do some stuff on his own, and it just wasn't coming back. He actually re-aggravated the leg, and so we just opted. You come to the end of short-term IR, you have to either activate, release, or long-term. Well, he's still injured, so we couldn't release him or activate him. So our only option was to put him on long-term season-ending IR.
San Diego Strike Force in our final 3 minutes or so with you, Coach. Tell us everything that you know about the San Diego Strike Force 1-10 on the year.
Well, that's a tough one there, Rich. The one thing you see is they put 68 points up against Arizona.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that scares you. And one of our former players, Marquise Rogers, I think he plays really hard. He's playing receiver. He goes out. He plays really hard. And the quarterback, I think, does a nice job. Defensively, they're kind of piecing things together. And at times they look pretty good, and other times you're not quite sure what they're doing schematically. And teams scare you like that because you're not sure where they're going to be. Usually you know where they're going to be.
It's hard to read a team when they've been playing Arizona 4 times in the course of the year. If they'd been playing more of the teams like we talked about with Tucson, if they had played more of the Eastern squads, maybe their record would have been different than 1-10.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, they've got to play Arizona a bunch, and not only losing to Arizona stuff, but also the physical toll it takes on a lot of the teams. It's much more than what people expect.
Their turnover ratio has not been good for them this year. They've had 26 turnovers in the course of the contests that they've played this year. And that's going to take them out of a lot of ball games or take away any chances of comeback wins at the end of the game.
Yeah, and they can score. They've shown that, but you're right. I mean, it comes at a cost sometimes for them, I think. We've got to try to produce turnovers. We need to try to get those and then also make sure that we don't give them the extra possessions, too.
And I think that's the bottom line as far as the game. When you talk about the turnovers, forcing that when your team has had turnovers and scored after that, that's when success happens, doesn't it?
Well, and it gives the defense a sense of confidence. It gives, in fact, the offense one, too. I think, offenses can go out and score touchdowns, but it doesn't quite still have the impact as when a defense goes out, gets a turnover, is able to get the offense back, and then the offense scores off that turnover. Those are the types of things that have really turned things around for teams.
Well, Coach, best to you. We'll talk to you before the game on Saturday.
All right, Rich. Thank you.
He is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Kurtiss Riggs. Stay tuned. Come back. We'll wrap this up, and then after the show goes off at 6:55, Carter Woodell will have the Canaries baseball for you. So this is the Kurtiss Riggs Show right here on KWSN.
When people waiting to see a doctor,
what's taking so long?
it can take a while.
I don't have time for this.
Or longer than a while.
We've been here 2 hours.
Forever.
Hello?
What would you say if there was another option?
Finally.
Yes.
It's about time.
We're inclined to agree. It's about time for the best patient care. Sioux Falls Urgent Care.
If you like to bowl, roll on into Eastway Bowl. Hey, wait a minute. Eastway Bowl is more than just bowling. It's a full of fun entertainment center. There's many things to do. Games, and more games, plus food. Great food. Come into our full-service sports bar and grill where you'll find terrific drinks with our popular late-night specials. Watch all your favorite sporting events at Eastway. Visit our website to make your bowling reservations and find out more about the full fun experience. Eastway Bowl and Entertainment Center, where there's something for everyone.
Is it time to sell your equipment? Sell it on AuctionTime.com. The best resource for selling farm equipment, construction equipment, trucks, and trailers. Powered by Tractor House, Machinery Trader, and Truck Paper, Auction Time brings you the largest audience of bidders from across the country and around the world. Get more for your equipment. See our current listings at AuctionTime.com or call 800-334-7443.
Kurtiss Riggs Show this Saturday. The Storm hosting the San Diego Strike Force, and you can hear the game with our pregame starting at 6:45 on KELO AM 1320. And Trice Crump and I will have the call for you. And I want to thank Lewis Pharmacies for the ticket giveaway. After we go off the air, we'll take your third call, 336-1230, for free tickets for the game coming up on Saturday. I want to thank the Storm head coach, Kurtiss Riggs, along with Lorenzo Brown for being on the show. Thank you to John Michaels, our studio producer and engineer, for making the Kurtiss Riggs Show run so smoothly. Hope you folks have a great evening. Enjoy Canaries baseball coming up right now with Carter Woodell. Take it away, Carter.
Okay, thank you, Rich.